What if I told you the greatest threat to your life isn't failure, heartbreak, or rejection, but forgetting who you are while trying to be what everyone else needed? You wake up, you show up, you smile, but somewhere behind your eyes, a quiet voice is asking, whose life am I living? It's a strange kind of grief. You're not sad because something happened. You're sad because something's missing, and the cruelest part is you can't name what it is. Because you've become so many people for so long, you've lost track of the one who was there at the beginning. This isn't depression, this is disconnection. A slow erasure of the soul through 1,000 polite nods and swallowed word. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst who mapped the human psyche like an undiscovered continent, said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to yourself." But what happens when you've adapted so completely, you don't even know what's important anymore? You sit at the dinner table surrounded by people. You laugh at the right moments. You nod at the right stories, but it feels like someone else is moving your mouth. This is the loneliness of not knowing who you are. Not an empty house, but an inner void. A spiritual homesickness for a self you used to be, or maybe never fully met. And maybe the world never asked for your truth. It asked for performance, for likability, for usefulness. So you gave it what it wanted, and the applause was loud, but it drowned out your voice. Now you feel the cost. You smile, but feel like a ghost. You succeed, but feel hollow. You're surrounded, but feel exiled. Not from others, but from your own soul. That ache you carry, it's not weakness, it's not brokenness. It's your soul knocking from underneath the floorboards of the life you built. And if you felt it, you're not failing. You're finally hearing the sound of your real life calling. This isn't your breakdown, it's your invitation. Because the day you stop feeling at home in the mask is the day the real journey begins. There's a moment, small, forgettable, when the mask slips on. And you don't even notice, you just smile when you're hurting. I laugh when you're angry, say I'm fine because I'm falling apart would make the room too quiet. And the moment passes, but the mask stays. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social face we wear to meet the world, a necessary tool. A survival strategy, a compromise between who we are and what the world accepts. But when the mask becomes the only face you show, you start to disappear beneath it. Maybe it began when you learned that your sadness made people uncomfortable, so you became the funny one. Or that your anger was too much, so you became the peacekeeper. Or that your dreams were unrealistic, so you became practical. One decision at a time, you abandoned your voice for approval. You didn't betray yourself. You protected yourself, but protection has a cost. And the cost is invisibility. Now people love you for the mask, for the role, for the image. But inside you feel like an actor stuck in the third act of a play that stopped making sense. There's a woman who knows exactly how to hold space for everyone else's pain, but has no idea how to speak her own. There's a man who looks successful on every surface, but lies awake at night wondering why his wins feel like someone else's. They're not anomalies, they're you and me, and so many others who learned that it's safer to be admired than to be seen. But here's the dangerous truth. A mask worn too long becomes a second skin. And when you try to take it off, you don't know who you are without it. You confuse being agreeable with being kind, being impressive with being valuable, being chosen with being loved. And in that confusion, you disappear. But the mask is not evil, it's exhausted. It has carried you through rooms that were not safe. It has protected a self that wasn't allowed to emerge, and now it's time to thank it and let it rest. You don't have to destroy the mask, you just have to stop mistaking it for your identity. Underneath the performance is the part of you that never needed to impress to be worthy. Never needed to shrink to be loved. Never needed to explain, justify, or earn your existence. That self is still there, still breathing beneath the weight of who you've been pretending to be. You were not born to be a brand, you were born to be a soul. It's time to remember your face, not the one the world rewarded, the one you buried to survive. Because your real life can't begin until you stop performing it. You didn't lose yourself in one moment. You lost yourself in 1,000 small silences. Every time you were told, don't be so sensitive. Every time someone rolled their eyes when you cried. Every time your joy, your anger, your wildness was met with shame, you pushed that part of yourself underground. Not because it was wrong, but because it was unsafe. This is how identity dies, not by force, but by adaptation. Carl Jung called it the shadow, not a darkness to be feared, but the hidden part of the soul you were told not to bring into the room. It starts early. The boy who cried one too many times, so he stopped crying altogether. The girl who laughed too loudly, so she learned to shrink her light. The teenager who loved with too much intensity, so they learned to keep everything just below the surface. Those parts didn't vanish, they became exiled. And now you wonder why your joy feels distant, your anger leaks sideways, your decisions feel foggy. It's because you're still carrying a suitcase full of unspoken selves, locked, but never forgotten. Internal family systems calls them exiles. Jung called them archetypal fragments of the self. But you know them as the parts of you that still flinch in your own presence. They come back in strange ways. A sharp reaction to a harmless comment, a sudden wave of shame after laughter, a self-sabotage right when things are finally working. You're not broken, you're haunted by the you who never got to be. And if you felt numb lately, like your emotions are muted, like life is happening in grayscale, that's not weakness, that's not failure, that's protection. Your nervous system remembers when being yourself cost you connection. But here's what no one told you. You cannot selectively silence parts of yourself without slowly forgetting your wholeness. You buried your wildness to be accepted. You buried your truth to be loved. You buried your voice to be safe. And now you're lonely, not for people, for the parts of you you lost trying to earn them. But there is nothing wrong with you. The ache you carry is not an error. It's a summons. A sacred signal from the shadowed parts of your psyche whispering, I'm still here, I never stopped being you. And if you want to remember who you are, you don't need more productivity. You don't need more perfection. You need a flashlight and the courage to walk back into the dark. Because the self you miss is not gone. She's waiting behind the door marked too much. He's standing in the room labeled unacceptable. They are watching through the mirror you've avoided for years. And they are not asking to take over, they're asking to be let back in. Because you were never meant to be one-dimensional. You were meant to be whole. And you will not feel alive again until the pieces you buried are allowed to come home. Before there was psychology, there were stories. And you know, stories knew something science is still trying to name, that the journey to becoming yourself always begins with forgetting. In the Japanese film Spirited Away, a young girl, Chihiro, enters a magical world and loses her name. She becomes Sen, a number, a servant, a version of herself that fits the system. And as her name fades, so does her memory of who she is. But deep down, something in her remembers. And it's only by reclaiming her true name that she reclaims her power, her voice, her way home. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He wrote not just about dreams and shadows, but about the mythic dimension of identity, the deep symbolic language of the soul. He believed that becoming who you are isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering something ancient. And the stories, well, they remember for us. In the old Selkie myth from the north, a seal woman sheds her skin and becomes human. But a man steals her sealskin, her essence, so she cannot return to the sea. She marries him, she bears his children. But her eyes always look to the water. She becomes beloved by others and unrecognizable to herself. Until one day she finds her hidden skin and without asking permission, she returns to the sea. This is not a story of abandonment. It is a story of reclamation, because sometimes the cost of staying is too high. Not because others are cruel, but because you've been too far from your own name for too long. You don't have to live by someone else's story. You don't have to fit the plot they wrote for you. You were not born to be convenient. You were not born to be quiet. You were born to burn, to remember what the world made you forget, to walk into the silence of yourself and ask, not who should I be, but who did I bury to become acceptable? The myths aren't there to entertain you, they're mirrors. Each one whispering you are not alone in this forgetting. Each one handing you a map back to the self you lost. And you don't need to know the whole path. You just need to take the first step, away from the performance, toward the echo that's been calling your name through every ache, every dream, every moment you've ever felt like a stranger in your own life. Because what you forgot isn't lost. It's waiting to be remembered. You didn't just wake up one day and forget who you are. It happened slowly. You lost yourself in routines that looked like progress, in roles that looked like love, in masks that looked like home. And now you're here, functional, capable, surrounded, but hollow. This isn't failure. This is the sacred beginning. Carl Jung once wrote that what you most need will be found where you least want to look. And for many, that place is the silence inside you. The aching void where certainty used to live. The space that used to be filled with ambition, applause, or approval, but now feels like a pause you can't explain. This is not a breakdown, this is the invitation, the initiation, the unraveling of who you thought you had to be, so the truth of who you are can finally speak. You were not meant to stay lost, but you were meant to get lost. Because real identity isn't found in clarity, it's born in confusion. The kind that shakes loose every borrowed belief, every inherited ideal, every version of you built for survival, not authenticity. Jung called this individuation not self-improvement, but self-remembering. And it begins the moment you stop chasing who you were and start listening for who you are becoming. You'll know it's happening when your old goals lose their glow. When the people who once completed you now confuse you. When the life you spent years building suddenly feels like a beautifully decorated prison. Don't run from that moment. Bow to it. Because this is where you stop asking, who do they want me to be? And start asking, what parts of me have I buried just to be accepted? It's a painful process, this peeling away. Because every identity you release was once a strategy, a lifeline. A mask that protected the child in you from pain, rejection, abandonment. And now those same masks suffocate the adult trying to breathe. So yes, this part will feel like grief. You will miss the versions of you that kept you safe. You will miss the certainty that came from pretending. But what waits on the other side is not a new label. It's not a tidy sense of self. It's not even a clean resolution. It's a deeper, quieter knowing. A soul you can finally hear beneath the noise. And once you've heard it, you'll stop reaching, you'll stop proving. You'll stop bending into shapes that don't fit the sacred geometry of your being. You'll stop performing the echo and begin living the voice. Because you were never meant to be everything to everyone. You were meant to be whole. Even if that means being misunderstood. Even if it means letting go of a life that made sense on paper but never felt like yours. You were never meant to stay lost. You were meant to burn, to rise, to return to the self that never left, only waited. Waited for the day you'd stop asking permission to be exactly who you are. And now that day has come. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from living a life that never fit your soul. You were surrounded, connected, admired. And yet you felt like a visitor in your own body. You played your part. You wore the smile. You filled the silence. But behind your eyes, something else was always speaking. Something the world never heard. This is the loneliness of not knowing who you are. Not because you're empty, but because you've been full of everyone else, their expectations, their values, their voices. And in all that noise, you forgot your own. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But what no one tells you is that the terror doesn't come from knowing who you are. It comes from the years you spent not knowing. From the quiet grief of watching your life play out while your real self sat backstage waiting for a cue that never came. Until now. Because this ache you feel, it's not madness, it's not weakness. It's your soul trying to come back home. The part of you that remembers what joy felt like before it was measured, what freedom felt like before it was managed, what wholeness felt like before you were told to break it down into pieces that others could digest. This loneliness has a name, and that name is truth. The truth of who you were before the world told you who to be. The truth that still lives beneath your performance. The truth that whispers when the noise stops and the mirrors crack. And that truth is patient, it doesn't shout, it doesn't beg. It simply waits for the moment you become still enough to hear it again. So if you're here now, feeling the pull inward, feeling the unraveling, feeling the ache, don't rush past it, don't numb it. Don't label it depression or failure or weakness. Call it what it is, a sacred homesickness. A longing to return to the self that was never truly lost, only silenced, only reshaped, only waiting. And when you answer that call, you won't find yourself in a mirror or a title or a perfect life. You'll find yourself in the quiet moments, in the breath you didn't have to earn, in the feeling of saying something true and not shrinking afterward. You'll find yourself in the places you once avoided, the grief, the longing, the mess. Because those places are not your shame, they are your map. And they've been trying to lead you back to the only place that ever mattered. Here now, inside. You don't have to become someone else. You don't have to wait until you're perfect. You don't have to be certain. You just have to stop running from the ache. And listen to what it's been trying to say all along. That this loneliness is not the end, it's the beginning. The doorway, the fire, the mirror, the name. And if anything in this story felt like yours, if you've ever wondered whether anyone else has felt this too, you already know the answer. You are not alone. And if you speak even a single line of your truth, you make it easier for someone else to come home too. So speak. Even if your voice shakes. Even if it's in the comments. Even if it's just a whisper. Because sometimes that's all it takes to break the spell of not knowing who you are. And to begin again as who you've always been.